Hey, my name is LuAnne Ford, and we're coming to you from the campus of Northeast Mississippi Community College. My husband, Ricky Ford, is the president here, and we have started a series called Cooking with the First Lady. But today, it's not only the First Lady cooking, it's also my friends who are members of the Fitness Center here at Northeast Mississippi Community College. I'd like to introduce these ladies to you, and as we do our summer garden supper, today they'll be assisting as we go through the menu. To my right here is Donna Wilkerson. Donna has been an educator for years. Most recently, she's just retired from Boonville High School, where she taught nutrition. We're very grateful to have Donna with us today. Also, to my right is Vicki Cole. Vicki is still employed and works for the Housing Authority here in Boonville. She's worked with them for many, many years. She has been walking with some of the other ladies even longer. What, Vicki, maybe 20 years or so, or even longer. And so she has to get up especially early because she's still at work and the rest of us are well, some of the rest of us are retired. To my left here is Virginia Chase. Virginia, for years, worked with finances with various places here in town. Most recently, she retired from the Boonville Baptist Memorial Hospital. And so she has been retired for some time and has been walking for a long, long time. Also to my left is Molly Etheridge. Molly works with the Northeast Community Services, and she is the person that deals with a lot of people around town to help them with power bills and other needs that they have. And she has a real ministry doing that. But she as well has to work and get up early in order for us to all walk together. We're going to start this morning with Mexican cornbread. All right, the Mexican cornbread. We want to start with the Mexican cornbread because it's going to take a while for it to cook, and we want it to be fresh. So we're starting with 1.5 cups of self-rising cornmeal. Okay, this is cornmeal mix. Guys, this has already got salt and baking powder and flour in it, okay? Cornmeal mix. To that, we're going to add 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to add, there's salt in here, but we're going to add just a tad bit more because we've got a bunch of other ingredients. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. The reason we have to add extra leavening is because we're putting extra things in it and it's going to make it heavier. So we're going to have more baking powder for it to rise. 1 cup of cream style corn. Now, you know as well as I do that cans don't have as much in them as they used to. Used to be a can of corn, Molly, was 16 ounces. Then it went down to 15. Now it's 14.5. Well, so it's not, so 1/2 a can is really not a full cup, but I use 1/2 a can so that I can make another helping of it out of another, with just using 1 can, I can get two helpings of it. This is 1 large onion chopped, so I went ahead and chopped that up. 2 eggs. These are large eggs. We always use large eggs. Probably I should, well, we'll just do it like that. 3/4 cup of vegetable oil. You can use canola. You can use vegetable. 8 ounces of sour cream. 8 ounces is a cup. So we're going to use a cup, 8 ounces of sour cream. Chopped jalapenos to taste. Now, my husband grows lots of peppers. He loves peppers. So we got these from the garden. And you can use 1 or 2 tablespoons to taste. Depends on if you like hot things or if you don't like hot things. And that's it. All right, we're going to take our fork because we want to make sure that those eggs are all incorporated in there. We'll stir all that up and you can see how thick it is, which is why we had to add the extra baking powder to it. Now, if I can get you, Molly, would you mind spraying these? These are my old muffin tins, and I apologize for them. They don't look too good, but they work really, really well. So this is a cookie scoop that I use, but you could use like 1/4 cup measure. And we're going to go ahead and spoon it into these muffin tins. I'm just going to do these 6 and I'm going to hand it to Molly and let her finish those up. So we're going to do this. you go, Molly. I'm gonna let you take that if you would over there. Wait, well, let me take that and we're gonna sprinkle some cheddar cheese on it. So we're gonna sprinkle cheddar cheese on this. Molly's gonna put this in a 375-degree oven for 35 minutes. And then she's gonna take it out. So Molly, I'm gonna let you take this Mexican cornbread things and we'll move on to our next recipe. All right, let's move on to our roasted squash and onions. My friends here, when we walk, actually suggested that I cook the squash this way. And before I had always boiled my squash, yellow summer squash, and my onions, but they told me, didn't you, about roasting it. And so we started doing that, and we have eaten squash every other day all summer long. So I wanted to show it to you because they had shown it to me. So what I have here is summer squash, and I just sliced it, guys. Now, if you get some that is bigger on the end, you need to cut it in half or in fourths so it's not huge, but pieces about like this. All right, I cut up an onion. I like to see my onion in my squash, so this is kind of bigger pieces. And I kind of made a little pile. I didn't spray my pan first because I'm going to put olive oil on it, so that's going to make it non-stick. So I've got olive oil, and I'm just going to just drizzle it over the top of those squash and onions, like that. Very simple. This is just a method more than a recipe. I'm just going to take my hands and I'm going to coat all of those squash and onions so they're all coated with the olive oil. Then we're just going to take it, try to get it in a single layer over your pan. And I'm going to let you, if you would you, Vicki, I'd let Vicki sprinkle that all over with salt and pepper, Vicki, if you would. Just however much you like. If you like, you could, we're just going to only do salt and pepper. That's what Ricky and I usually do. But if you want to put some other seasoning in it, if you like rosemary, if you want to put some basil in it, you can put some Tony's, Satry's in it. I mean, any seasoned salt, any other kind of spice that you like. But Vicki's done a great job, just like I would do. And she's going to go put this in a 400-degree oven. We're going, go ahead if you want to, Vicki. She's going to cook that for 15 minutes, just like it is. And then after 15 minutes, she's going to take it out, take a spatula, turn it over, and put it on another 15 minutes, and we'll have wonderful roasted squash and onions. Now, as far as the health of it goes, this is great because you know that olive oil is a healthy fat, but not only that, but you're not going to lose any nutrients boiling it in something. You're going to get all those nutrients and they'll still be there and still be really good for you. So that was our second recipe, squash and onions. Okay guys, now we're moving on to crock pot mashed potatoes. I found this recipe several years ago and my family loves it. Of course, who wouldn't love it when it's got cheese and sour cream and butter in it, but hey, it makes a lot. So we're going to start out with 5 pounds of potatoes chopped. So in our pan, I've already chopped up 5 pounds of potatoes, cover them with water. Okay, to that we're going to add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. You could use garlic powder, but who wants to? Nobody. And then we're going to add 2 cubes of chicken bouillon. Now what we like to use instead of the chicken bouillon, well, it is bouillon, but it's not cubes. It is the powder. So this is 2 teaspoons of the chicken bouillon. So that would be 2 chicken bouillon cubes, or it would be 2 teaspoons. So we're starting that, and we're gonna have to let that come to a boil. It'll come to a boil, and Donna's gonna watch it, and then when it does, she's gonna turn it down until the potatoes get tender. So we're gonna continue cooking our meal, and then we're gonna come back and do some other things to these potatoes in just a little bit. All right, guys, we're ready for our second installment of our mashed potatoes. Donna, if you'll show that they're done. So what she's going to do is to strain those out. Now she's got a bowl underneath the strainer to catch some of the liquid. Tell me when you're ready, Donna, and I'll remove that. All right, so we want to save some of this, some of the potato water, and then Donna's going to dump the rest of that out. All right, the potatoes are hot, so while they're hot, we're going to move on to what we're going to add to those potatoes next. So Donna, if you'll just dump those back into the bowl, and then we'll bring them back over here to our station, and we will mash them. All right, Donna has our potatoes here. We're going to add just a little bit of the water, the potato water that we saved. And to those hot potatoes, we're going to add 1 8-ounce cream cheese. We're going to let it melt in there with her potatoes. Donna, let me break it up a little bit for you, and that might be a little easier. And also 1 cup or 8 ounces of sour cream. It's gonna be a little easier once this kind of melts in there for her to mash that together. So first of all, remember what we did? We peeled 5 pounds of potatoes. We covered them with water. We added garlic and chicken bouillon to them. We put them over here, brought them to a boil. Donna continued to cook them until they got done, okay? That was the first thing. They were done. We just rinsed them out, saved some of the potato water out. Donna, I'm going to add a little bit of this to that. And now we're mashing them with 1 8-ounce cream cheese and 1 8-ounce sour cream. So we're going to continue to mash those, and when those get completely mashed, what we're going to do is we're going to put them in a crock pot. Now let me talk to you about this while she continues to mash, and Donna, if you need more of this, just add it. I'm going to go ahead and spray with cooking spray the inside of my crock pot. Now many of you may use crock pot liners. Sometimes I do that, and if so, you would want to cover it with a liner and then put this mashed potato mixture into the liner. Sometimes if I'm doing it ahead of time for Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'll put it into the liner, I'll close it up, put that liner in the refrigerator. Then the morning that we're going to have, whatever holiday, I'll take that liner out of the refrigerator, put it in, cover it up, and then it'll cook for a couple hours on low. Be wonderful, wonderful mashed potatoes. So Donna, if that's good with you, we may have a few chunks in it, but it won't matter because we like chunks, because we like potatoes. Donna, I'm going to go ahead we'll go ahead and put those into our crock pot. So at this point, we're going to plug the crock pot into the electricity, and then we'll cook it on low for 2 hours. But like I said before, you can also put it into your crock, get the crock out, put the crock into the refrigerator, and pull it out the next day or the next day whenever you want to serve it, and warm it up. All right. So we're not finished with this yet. Today we're going to finish. We're going to finish it later. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, and we'll let it cook for a couple hours on low. All right. For our next recipe, this is recipe number 4 of 8. We're going to do peas. Now, most of us grew up eating black-eyed peas, pink-eyed, crowder peas, some peas of some sort, and we did as well. My husband, Ricky, has a garden, and we grow the kind of pink-eyed ones. But today, I went and just got some at the grocery store. These are says purple hull peas, and we're not going to do anything fancy with them. I'm just going to show you how I cook them. Now, back in the day, I used to cook them in a pressure cooker, a regular pressure cooker. And the reason I did that is that when I put peas up fresh, I just blanched them for 3 minutes, and then I shocked them, put them into cold ice water, and put them in the freezer. And that's what the experts say for us to do. That's a good thing, but on the other hand, you have to cook them a long time before they're soft enough to eat. So that's why I always cooked them in a pressure cooker. Well, in recent years, people have developed electric pressure cookers. This is an Instant Pot. And when they came out, I got one of those. I couldn't wait to get one. Because you don't have to worry about watching them and them potentially exploding. You can set a timer on these, and then they will cut off when the time expires. The Instant Pot is only one brand. There are several other brands, and if you have one and you don't know what to do with it, here's a good thing you can do with it. So this is very simple. Like I say, usually I just take a bag out of the out of the freezer, but I don't have that. So I'm just gonna use half of this bag and I'm gonna dump it. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just pull this out, Virginia. Okay. Virginia has an Instant Pot, so she's gonna be able to help me work this. So I just put about half of that in there. I'm not gonna add much water to this because none will escape. Very little will escape in a pressure cooker. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of water in there. Virginia gave me just about the right amount. And I'm sorry about this, but I flavor mine with bacon grease. Now when I do make bacon, and I pour the grease in a little container and put it in the refrigerator. So I'm just gonna take just a little bit and I'm just gonna put it in there. Now if you don't wanna do that and it's not, and you don't like the bacon flavor, you can just take a little oil and put it in there. So Virginia, she'll put that in the Instant Pot. Now when you put the lid on the Instant Pot, go ahead and put it to seal. On the top of the pot, there's seal section, and then there's a vent section. So Virginia's going to put it on to seal. If you would, make sure that, Virginia. Then we're going to set it for 12 minutes. Okay? So she'll punch it. It's already set to 12, so that's it. It's on. Now we'll watch it as we go to the next things. So whenever that goes off, once it comes up to power, then it'll start counting down the 12 minutes. And then once the 12 minutes are over, it'll kick off and it'll slowly release the pressure. Now we can actually wait till it completely releases by itself, or we can manually release the pressure. Either one, both will work. Then we'll season it with salt and pepper. So that is our black-eyed peas. Okay, we're here at the stove. Donna, if you'd put in a couple cups of water, and then we'll go with 2 cups of sugar. Now, we're gonna ask Donna to watch this as we make a simple syrup. And right now what we see is that the sugar is white, of course, with the clear water. So it's gonna take a little bit, it's gonna have to warm up. She'll watch that. We don't really want it to come to a boil, but just whenever the sugar is dissolved, she can just turn it off and the simple syrup will be ready to add to our apple cobbler. So let's come over here and let's make the crust. So let's work on our crust. As I said, it's gonna be crispy crust. This is a 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. So we'll put that in there, 1.5 cups. To that, we're gonna add 1/3 cup of shortening. We went ahead and measured that out. And what we're going to do is work with this like a pie crust. And we're going to, you can take a fork. I happen to have a pastry cutter here. So we're gonna use this. And we're gonna work with this until it resembles like peas. What happens is in this pastry cutter, your shortening gets caught up in there, and from time to time you've got to use your fingers or use a fork in order to get them from how it's all, you know, kind of coming together on your pastry cutter. If you don't have a pastry cutter, like I said, you can use a fork. For years I just used a fork. Just mash it around there until all of your shortening is incorporated in your flour, just as if you were making a pie crust. Of course, how many of us make pie crust anymore? But anyway, I digress. We're making a cobbler. All right, so here we are. I've got that mixed up. Now to that, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of milk. Now, you've got to combine it till it just barely comes together. If you put too much milk in it, it's going to be like a biscuit dough and it won't have the crunch that you're looking for. So this calls for 1/3 cup of milk. And I'm going to stir this together until it barely comes together. In fact, it won't even look like it's coming together. It's going to look like it's not going to come together at all. But when I dump it out, I'm going to use my hands and make it together into a ball. So that's what it looks like. You can add a tad more. I'm going to get every drop out of this if you need to, but try not to use any more than you have to. Now we're going to roll this out, and so in order to do that, my friends gave me this tip. I've got one piece of wax paper out here and it's already dried up, so let me show you what they told me to do. We've got a wet paper towel here, or a wet washcloth here. So I'm gonna wet my countertop. Is this right, girls? And lay this, see, they have to help me. And lay this out so that it will stick and won't roll as I try to roll out my crust. So you can see how that's sticking. So there we go. Let me take some flour so that it doesn't stick. Shake it on there. I like to use lots of flour. I'm going to take my dough and try to form it into a ball. Now this is going to be hard to do because it's very, as my friend Ms. Wingo used to say, it's very short, which means it has a lot of shortening in it and not much moisture. So that's going to make it very crispy, but it's also going to make it very hard to stick together. If I had a lot of milk in here, then it would be more like a biscuit dough, but then it wouldn't taste all that good. All right, see what I'm doing? I'm forcing it to stay together. Now it's going to be very crumbly, but that won't matter because when we eat our cobbler, we'll be eating that crispy crust and we'll be happy. All right, my rolling pin, girls, do y'all see it anywhere? Yep. Wherever it is, we'll get it. Thanks, Donna. Donna's tending our syrup. And we're going to roll this out into a rectangle. Now, do you see how it's trying to come apart just a little bit? That's okay. We're not going to worry about it because I'm going to put my hands together and I'm going to make it stick together. So we'll put more flour on it. See how flaky it is, guys? It's just wanting to come apart. That's okay. We're not going to worry about it because that's going to make some good crust. All right, we're going to try to make it into a rectangle so that we can roll it up into kind of a jelly roll fashion. All right, this is a 1.5 cups to 2 cups of chopped apples. I just used the apples that I had around the house. Probably the best apples to use and are tart apples. Apples like Granny Smith. This is not Granny Smith. These are just apples that I had because we just use what we have, don't we? That's what I do. Whatever apples you have, you may have a tree with apples. Now you see how that's falling apart and I'm pushing it together and making it go together because I don't want to add any more liquid to it because if I do, that's going to make it not as crispy. And if you're like me, you like crispy crust. All right, girls, how are we doing over there on melting that butter? It's ready? Okay, if y'all will bring it over, tell you what, why don't you bring it over with and bring a some kind of a cloth to set it on so we don't want to burn our countertop. And what I'm going to need is a knife, if I can get one of y'all to grab a knife. All right, we've got our, come on Vicki, we've got our jelly roll thing here and we're going to cut this into 12 strips, all right? Just as if you were making a cinnamon roll. So we're going to cut it in half first. Okay, then I'm going to cut each half in half and then each one of those fourths in thirds to make 12. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, now we're going to take it and turn it up so that you can see, oh man, I forgot my cinnamon. I think I'll just sprinkle it on top. You know, that's the way it goes, girls, men. All right, sorry, we're just gonna sprinkle it right here on top of that, and then we put it in here, we're gonna sprinkle more. So you can see the apples, so we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Can I get one of you girls to bring the cinnamon over here? All right, let me tell you what we're going to do. What we should have done is when we put those apples in a long strip on that dough, what I should have done is taken my teaspoon of cinnamon and sprinkled it right on the apples and then covered it up. Well, I didn't do that. I forgot to do that. So, it may happen to you. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to sprinkle some, I sprinkled some on the top. I'm going to sprinkle some more on the top of each one of these. If you like nutmeg, you can add nutmeg to it. If you like that as well. Donna, is the syrup ready?
I didn't boil it now.
Okay, no, shouldn't have been boiled. Okay. So here we have clear syrup. This is sugar syrup. Donna, I'm going to hand this to you in a minute, but we're going to go ahead and carefully pour the syrup around. We're not going to pour it right on the rolls. If we pour it right on the rolls, they'll disintegrate. So we're just going to pour it in here, and it looks funny. It looks like your rolls are, just in some water. But Donna's going to take it, Donna, if you would, and she's going to put it in a 350-degree oven, and it's going to cook for 55 to 60 minutes. And then when it's done, we'll show you what it looks like. All right, we're moving on to our 6th recipe, which is more of a method instead of a recipe, and it's just fried okra. Now, there are as many ways to cook fried okra as there are that you can think of. I'm just going to show you how I do it. It's very simple. This is a Northeast Nutrition Center, and if you're going to make something fried, first you got to be careful because fried things are not the best. But I will say this is the only thing we're frying in this entire meal that has 8 recipes, number 1. But if you're going to fry it, then number 2, you need to use as little other added fatty ingredients as possible. So all I use is cornmeal mix, okra, and water. That's all I do. Now what I like to do is just take, I've cut my okra up. My husband grows this in the garden. The deer have eaten all our okra. I had to buy this at the grocery store, but you can buy it the same. Sliced it up. But in order for the cornmeal to stick to it, it has to have a little wet. Some people use milk, some people use buttermilk, and some people make batters, but I don't. I just use a little bit of water. And I just take my fingers and I just mix it up like this. I like to use my Tupperware thing until it is, I feel like the cornmeal is going to stick to it. I'm going to add a little bit more water to this, and until it feels like it's got enough on there. I'm going to shake some cornmeal on it. I'm going to stir it until I think that everything is coated. I usually have excess cornmeal mix after I get through because I just want to make sure that everything's coated. So it looks pretty good, and that's all I do. No milk or buttermilk or egg or batter or anything like that. Now we're going to come over here to our black skillet. This is a black kind of a Dutch oven. This was my mom's, and it was her mother's before her. And some of you may have some of these that you cook on regularly, or some of you may have some of these out in the barn or somewhere else. You might want to get out and use. What we like about the black skillets and the cast iron is that it holds heat well. And so we've got in here probably, Donna, would you say maybe 3 inches or 4 inches worth? At least 3. This is just plain vegetable oil, or maybe it's canola oil, or some kind of vegetable oil. And what we're going to do is to test it to see if it's hot enough for us to fry our okra. If it's not hot enough, what's going to happen is you're going to put your okra in there, and it's just going to soak up all that grease while it waits for the temperature to come up. So we're going to take a little bit of this dry cornmeal mix. I'm going to sprinkle it in there, and it is cooking. It's frying a little bit, just this dry cornmeal, so we know that it's ready. I'm going to start this off, and then Donna's going to be tending it. We don't want to put too many in there. This is a spider, by the way, but any slotted spoon will work. We don't want to put too much in there because if we crowd our pan, then it's going to get soggy. So what I do is I'll just take some and I shake off the excess, put it in there, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's frying up. We're just going to put just a little bit in there. I'm going to have Donna will watch it. So it's going to fry until you get it to the desired crispness that you like. Some people like it more blonde colored and not as brown. Some people like it almost burned. So however you like it, you just keep cooking it until you get the okra like you like it. When we get through, what we're gonna do is put it on some paper towels and let it soak up the grease. So Donna will do that, and then as she does her next batch, she'll get some fresh paper towels, and so it can soak up more grease, and then we'll put it in a container later. Some people don't use paper towels. Virginia told me that she uses a strainer, and she'll put hers in a strainer, and then the grease just goes down. So however you want to do it, but when she finishes with that, she's going to take salt and pepper and sprinkle it on top of it. You don't have to do that. I don't usually do that. Sometimes I'll add some salt. Donna adds salt and pepper, and many of you may like that as well. So if you feel like it needs some more seasoning, then feel free to do that after it's already cooked. The okra's ready. Donna has fried it. Go ahead, Donna. She's going to go ahead and start. This is the first that we put in there. She's going to use a spider to go ahead and lift it out of the grease, get as much out as she can initially, and then put it on the paper towels. So she's going to go ahead with that. That's our first batch, and then she'll go ahead and fry the next section of the okra. All right, here we are to slaw, cabbage salad or slaw. Again, there are a million ways to do slaw, and everybody knows that. Just going to show you how I do it. It's also very simple. Along with the Nutrition Center and being careful, I don't want to add a whole lot of unhealthy ingredients to the slaw, so we just try to keep it simple. What I did first was to cut up my cabbage. I have a food processor, but I don't like to shred it. I like to chop it so that they're more substantial pieces, so that's what I have here. And so I just take some mayonnaise. I'm not particular. I know some people like Hellmann's in particular. I don't really care. I can't much tell the difference. But if you can, then you use whatever kind it is that you like. So I've got just, a little bit of mayonnaise in there, not too much. Maybe that's half of a cup. I don't like mustard slaw, but I do like a little bit of twang. So I'm gonna just squeeze. I'm gonna say that's a half of a teaspoon in there. And I don't like it for it to be very thick. I like for it to, I don't like to have too much mayonnaise in it because it's just too thick. So I'll take a little milk and I'll just drizzle some in there. Maybe that's a couple tablespoons. Take a whisk and I'll just stir that up till it makes kind of a dressing. I know when I was growing up, my mom, you could buy coleslaw dressing, and my mom would buy that coleslaw dressing at the store, and it's pretty good, I think Kraft makes that product. So then I take salt and pepper and put that into my dressing for my slaw. And I tell you what, girls, I'm gonna need a plastic spatula. Do y'all see one around here anywhere? Oh, there's one underneath there, Virginia. Look underneath. Okay. And so I'll get that out of here and we'll just stir up our slaw. We want to get everything out of our pan. See how that's thinner than what it would be if it's just straight up mayonnaise. Another thing you need to realize with slaw is that as it sits, it gets more watery. So when you first stir it up, you don't want it to be as creamy as what you expect it to be, because the longer it sits, the creamier it's going to get. And you don't want a bunch of mayonnaise hanging around your plate. So that's it. Put this in the refrigerator, cover it up, let it sit for a little bit, and you'll have some great slaw. So this is the recipe you've been waiting for, the last one. And this is the crock pot rotisserie chicken. I found this recipe several years ago and I love it because I can fix it ahead of time. I can go ahead and fix my chicken like I did last night, and I put it in my crock, and this morning when my husband got up to run, he went and put it in the crock pot, and I'll show it to you in just a minute. But I'm gonna show you first how you fix it. It works best, the shape of a chicken is kind of oblong, so you really works best if you use a crock pot that is shaped like this, it's oblong. When you cook the chicken for a long period of time, there's a lot of juice that's going to come out of it, and you don't want it kind of basting and sitting in all that liquid in the bottom of your crock pot. So I like to use a rack. This is a rack that I just had at the house. Another option, and I put this in the recipe itself, is if you wanted to take some pieces of aluminum foil and just roll them up into balls, you could stick it in there first, or you could just slice vegetables or onions in half and set them there. They can become like a rack. And anyway, we want to spray this first with some cooking spray so that it doesn't stick. Now, one of the ladies, Donna, maybe I can't remember who, went ahead and took our whole chicken and rinsed it and dried it, so it's ready for the dry rub. So the dry rub is made up of smoked paprika. This is not regular paprika. This is smoked paprika. It costs a little bit more. Totally worth it. Smoked paprika. This is a tablespoon. We're going to put it into, I already had a bowl here with a couple teaspoons of salt. We'll put the smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/2 a teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1/4 a teaspoon of onion powder. Okay, I'm going to take my whisk and we're going to mix that all together to make the dry rub. This is fantastic, y'all. I've got to do it. You know, on a busy day, you can prep this the night before and then stick it in the oven in the morning. Be done when you get home. We're going to take it. She went ahead and took out all the insides for this. I'm going to go ahead and take my fingers and sprinkle some of that on the inside cavity. All right. Since we're going to lay it with the legs up, we're going to season the bottom of it first. Go ahead and sprinkle the seasoning all around. Underneath, make sure you get underneath your wings and all around. If you wanted to, you could even put some underneath the skin. I'm not talented enough to do that, so I skipped that part. All right, we're going to turn it to this side and go ahead and stick it into your crock. Okay, and then we'll just sprinkle this all over it and make sure I've got enough to put underneath my wings, underneath my drumstick, on both sides. Okay, now we're not adding any butter to this. Robert, for your healthy nutrition center, we don't want to add any butter. No flour, nothing. That is strictly, that's chicken, and it is covered with a dry rub. That is it. And so we're going to put the top lid on it. Now at this point, you could take this crock out, put the crock in the refrigerator. When you get ready to cook it the next day, you could put it into the crock, turn it on. You go ahead and you could go ahead and turn it on right now. I just happen to have one that I did last night. I put this into the crock last night. And my husband put it into this, turned it on this morning. But the reason I wanted to show you that this was this is beautiful. This is a beautiful chicken. But what I did was, I took the rack out of my Instant Pot. This is gonna fall apart. So I took the rack out of my Instant Pot to put my chicken in. So in the bottom of that are all the juices, and I've got my chicken, and it's not, you know, it's not, you know, it comes out without falling apart. So we're gonna set this on a rack, and in just a minute we're gonna show you our completed meal. Well, our meal is complete. We have our 8 dishes, our crock pot mashed potatoes, our black-eyed peas, roasted squash and onions, fried okra, crock pot rotisserie chicken, slaw, Mexican cornbread, and last but not least, our mom's apple cobbler. We're going to take that out and put some ice cream on it, and all of us are going to enjoy a meal together. We'd love to eat with you anytime here at Northeast Mississippi Community College, where you're always welcome. And Northeast is always moving forward. We'll be moving forward with our cooking series in the fall, so look for a special fall meal coming in a couple months.